What's up YouTube, Webbers5 here, coming at you today with a video talking about the upcoming Endymion structure deck. So for those who may have seen, the full TCG list of the Endymion structure deck got dropped today. Interestingly enough, the list is exactly the same as the OCG, which I'm not complaining with. The OCG deck list was very good. So, because for primary reasons, Droll reprint, Desires reprint. Welcome. I can live with that. My only issue about what they dropped with the TCG list is changing the name of the boss monster. I don't like it. I'm so used to Endymion, the founding sorcerer supreme. Now he's not that. And it makes me sad. But I'll live with it at some point. So anyway, the thing I mainly wanted to talk to you guys about is with that structure deck coming out within the next 2 weeks, I just wanted to talk to you guys about what is the best way for you to prepare for the Endymion structure deck. So I've split this into like 5 main things of how to best prepare for the deck. 4 of which are probably the mandatory things that you would probably be doing. The 5th one is kind of like an optional thing of what you could consider doing. Okay, so first main thing of what you guys would be doing in preparation for the deck is, naturally, probably the most obvious one, figuring out your deck build. So, for most of you, you've probably started thinking about your deck build when the deck got announced in the OCG and naturally videos started coming up seeing how it plays. So, most of you would probably have figured it out by then. For those of you who are just recently hearing about it now, so probably the best... You probably might be thinking, oh, I'm not sure how to play this deck. So there are loads of YouTubers out there that have started making videos on how to play the deck. There's also lots of replay videos on it on YouTube showing how to play the deck as well. So maybe just use those as a starting point to get your basic idea of how you want to play the deck. And again, as I said, the TCG list got dropped today, so you can start looking through what's in it, see what you want to play, just get that basic idea. So yeah, probably my first main tip for preparing for it is figure out how you want to build your deck. If anybody's interested in knowing what I'm thinking with my deck, I'm not going to say too much about it because I want to save that for the official deck profile once I've done it, upon the deck's release. But I will say for mine, at the moment, I'm going with a Pot of Extravagance build because from what I've seen, it's really useful. It's really useful, great way to draw out your card. Like, you don't really need much draw power in the deck, you mainly just do a lot of searching. For those of you guys who are thinking, Webbers, what if you banish the Electromite, and what if you banish Electromite? Answer that simply, guys, you don't need it. It's a nice option to have, but you do not need Electromite to win in this deck. You really don't. I've tested it, it works fine. The deck's consistent enough that you can put up several disruptions without the need for Electromite. If you can make the Electromite, that's great. That helps even more. But you don't need it. You really don't. No. Okay. So yeah, don't really need the Electromites. So that's why I like the Extravagance build. Also, I tend to go back and forth with Desires. Sometimes, a lot of the time, I like it. More frequently, I don't really like it as much. Not really sure why I don't like it. I just kind of don't. I mean, I stopped playing it in my Pendulum Guard Dragon build. That was on the primary reason that because the Guard Dragons are a bit more combo focused, I noticed anytime I was using it, I was banishing my dragons, which isn't really great. And even if I do it as the absolute last thing, there's still the chance I'm going to banish my dragons because with the Hieratic Seal, naturally I want to drop a dragon either from my hand or from my deck, and if it's still in my deck, as the last thing I'm going to do, there's still the chance I might banish one of those dragons because I only play them as one-offs, so there's still that risk. So I've kind of gone back and forth with Desires about it. But for those of you who like can't afford Extravagance, then Desires works absolutely fine. And also, naturally, because you're not playing Extravagance, you have the option to play other draw card engines like Spellbooks. Some of the Spellbook cards are being reprinted in the deck, so if you add Knowledge into it, that's another way. And then, of course, there's Crowley, who got printed in dual power as well, so another way for that. Okay, so good. Is there anything else I can kind of say? Not really much for me to tell you guys much about how I've planned my build. From how I've planned it so far, actually, it's pretty much one of the most straightforward decks I've actually ever built. My extra deck is extremely simple. There's very few different cards in it. Same with the main deck. My main deck is a lot of with the exception of like 2 cards in my main deck. Every single card in my main deck I'm playing at 3. And the 2 cards that I'm not playing at 3, I'm playing at 2. Well, naturally, one of them is Terraforming, which is at 2 anyway, and then there's another card which I'm playing at 2 as well. So, but I'll get to that once I do the deck profile, which I will do once the deck is officially released. Okay, so that's the first main tip of figuring out your build. My second tip for preparing for the deck, get some new sleeves for the deck. Because guys, think about it, over the course of like a big format, you will probably be using the same sleeves in a deck. If you were thinking of like maybe combining the Endymions with your Magician deck, that's fine, but I'd still maybe recommend picking up some new sleeves, because this format's probably lasted quite a while, so your sleeves can get like grubby, pick up dirt, a bit worn. So I always find it nice every now and then to start a new format or a new deck with a nice clean pair of sleeves. So, not necessary, but it's an option. Guys, I should also maybe point out, OCG also have specific Endymion sleeves, which some international sellers are selling on things like eBay, Amazon. They look quite nice. I'm probably not going to get them because I really like the KMC sleeves. They're really nice. They shuffle nicely. But the Endymion ones, they do look very nice. And if you guys are interested, I'd highly suggest maybe looking at them and picking them up. Okay. And my third tip for the deck build, my third tip for preparing for Endymion, maybe consider investing in potential other engines that could work with it. Probably the 2 most popular engines for it right now are Mythical Beasts and Spellbooks. So with the Battles of Legend, I did a bit of research into this, which I've got on here. So things like Magician of Prophecy and Secrets from Battles of Legend. Like, Magician of Prophecy is like £2 each for a card. Secrets is like £3 each. With the recent print of Spellbook of Knowledge on the Infinity Chasers, that's going for like £1 as a super rare, which is pretty decent. Then there's other cards like Spellbook of the Master and Spellbook of Wisdom, which are like between like £1 to they're ranging between like £1 to £5 each, which isn't too much. And then the Spellbook Link, that's going for like £2 to £3 at the moment, which isn't so bad. And keep in mind, Crowley's summon requirements are 2 spellcaster monsters. Its arrows point diagonally down, so it's another potential monster you could just play in the deck as an extender for links or your Pendulum Summon. And then also Mythical Beasts, like again, Jackal King just got reprinted in Infinity Chasers. I took a bit of a search on that. With that super rare reprint, it's now like dropped to a £2 card. But for those who are interested in like the original print, the Extreme Forces is going for like £10 each. And Cerberus, of course, that got reprinted in the Megatins. The Megatin one is raring between like £5 to £8 at the moment, which isn't so bad. The original print's still at like 15 if you're willing to go that much, to go the extra mile to make it an original print high rarity deck. Shout out to anyone who's actually thinking of doing that. Guys, if you're wondering, yes, I'm planning to max rarity my deck, but I'll get into more of that later. So, other cards, like probably one of the main cards you might be picking up for the deck to consider is Mythical Institution from Cybernetic Horizon, which is currently sitting at like just a £1 card because it's a common, and that's just from most retailers online. Mythical Institution can be so good in this deck because if you combine that with the Mythical Beast, you just do Mythical Beast stuff in combo with this, put some spell counters on here, and then that just gives you the option to search pretty much your entire deck, similar to a matter of like Magical Abductor. The only downside is this card's downside is Institutions once per turn, and you have to remove spell counters equal to the level of the thing you want. Whereas with something like Magical Abductor, you just have to remove 3 spell counters. It's not once, remove 3 spell counters, not once per turn. So yeah, pretty nice option as well. But still, Mythical Institution's a pretty decent card for you to consider for the deck. And then also other Mythical Beast cards that you can consider in the deck are like the original Mythical Beast Jackal, which is the rare monster, which is sitting at like £1 at the moment each. You'd only probably play like 2. Some people, I've seen some builds that are playing 3. It's just a good way to drop your mythical beast out from the deck. I mean, there's lots of other ways to do it now with the Endymion support, but still just a potential option to have just as a normal summon potentially. And then other things I've seen people using are Garuda as well. Garuda's an ultra, so it's sitting at like £5 at the moment. It's only had 1 print, but it's a pretty decent card, just a way to snipe back row, but most people are using it for the effect of disrupting your opponent's summons, and then once it gets spell counters, you use the effect of the boss monster to return it to your hand, and then you can do it again later, which is why people are only playing 1, but yeah. It's basically like a more fun version of doing, what is it, Beast Magic Attack. Much more fun than that, and much better. And then another card within the Mythical Beast archetype that's pretty much worth picking up this deck is the ultra rare spell Mythical Bestiary, which most people know mill the top 2 cards, target a card on the field, and put up to 2 spell counters on it. I don't know why it says up to 2. You're gonna put on 2. Because essentially if you scale it, if you've got Abductor, you scale the Abductor, activate the Bestiary, mill 2 cards, target the Abductor, and then that's an instant search just for milling 2 cards. And naturally, Bestiary has its second effect if it's destroyed by opponent's card effect, so if they choose to like negate, choose to negate and destroy it while it's in, if they choose to destroy it while it's in your possession, either by like negating the activation or whatever, you do get its secondary effect of just summon a monster from the deck you can put a spell counter on, and then put 2 spell counters on it. So that's not bad at all. So yeah, Bestiary is kind of a good card to consider for the deck. I'm debating over whether or not I want to play it. My deck's kind of my build concept I've got right now is kind of tight for space. I've currently dropped to the point that it's at 40. I've currently got it at like I think 43 cards last time I checked. I'm trying to cut it down to 40, but it's so difficult right now. But maybe I'll just keep it at 43. That's not so bad at all. That's not such a bad number. But I've still got a couple weeks to figure it out until the deck's out, but I'll have a think about it. Okay, so that's the 3rd one. The 4th one, for the 4th tip I've got, this is probably something most of you have figured out. It's a spell counter based deck, so one thing you guys are probably going to want to be doing is picking up some D20s and D10s. Because I've seen some combos in the OCG with this deck. The amount of spell counters you can generate is absolutely insane. So you're probably going to want a lot of dice to keep track of it all. So the way I see it, you'd probably want like, so thinking of it, if you have like a full field, so think of it in terms of cards that you'd likely have on the field that you can put spell counters on. So it'd be like the field spell, maybe 1 pendulum monster in your extra monster zone, and then like 2 to 3 in your main monster zone, and then your scales, and then your two spell cards. So that's like 9 or so cards that you might have to keep track of spell counters with. So for my preparation, I've currently got 9 D20s and 2 D10s. I plan to use like my D10s for my pendulum zones because I pretty much use those spell counters very quickly, and then I can use like the higher D20s for cards that might rack up spell counters in high numbers more quickly. And D20s, D10s, they're not exactly difficult to find. I'm pretty sure most of you guys, your locals, will probably have D20s for really cheap prices. Though, if some of you are like me and you like a bit more fancy equipment, you can shell out a bit more to get nicer quality dice. Like, I picked up 5 D20s off Gravity Dice. They're a bit pricey, but I just like the way that they look and feel. So that's something to consider, but guys, don't necessarily break your bank over a deck. I mean, that's kind of hypocritical of me to say, given how much I'm planning to rarity buff my deck, but still. So yeah, I definitely recommend so for my recommendation in terms of D20s and D10s, I'd say like maybe have about, probably at least 5 D20s for the deck, 5 to 6 D20s for the deck, and maybe like 2 to 4 d10s. Yeah, just to get yourself prepared for the spell counter spammage, which is going to be fun. And so those are my 4 main tips for preparing for the deck. My last tip for preparing for the deck, this is only for like certain people who aren't afraid to invest a bit more into the deck. I'm certainly one of those, and that's maybe just consider rarity bumping your deck if you want it to really look nice. Like, not necessarily for everyone, but for those who want to. But for those who are a bit like me and really like to invest in some of the decks that they make and make it look absolutely the nicest you can, or just like really nice max rarity decks, that's something to consider. So just for a basic card in the deck to rarity bump, would consider is Terraforming in Ultimate Rare. Though I've checked online, Ultimate Terraformings, they are going for like 45 each. If you guys are willing to shell out that much, don't necessarily worry about it. And for those who are thinking of playing the Spellbook engine, I'd probably consider going for a basic, cheap Spellbook engine to start off with, and then maybe consider max rarity over time of saving, because some of the main Spellbook cards that you play, in their highest rarity, they're going for quite a bit. I've checked online, Spellbook of Power, that's like a £35 ulti, which is quite a bit. It's also part of the reason I'm not planning to use Spellbooks in my build, because I have a rarity issue, and if it's not max rarity, I kind of don't always want to play it. That being said, my extra deck for this isn't completely max rarity, because I don't feel like spending another £30 on a borrow load. And frankly, I really like the alternate artwork that got printed in Dual Power. And so, so going back to like Spellbook prices, so like Spellbook of Fate, that's sitting up between 18 to 25. Secrets, Spellbook of Secrets and Ulti, that's like 30 to 35 at the moment. And like Blue Boy, Spellbook Magician of Prophecy, I was shocked to discover that card sitting between like 35 and 60 quid. I took one look at that and like, yeah, I'm not playing the Spellbook engine in this deck. Like, don't get me wrong, I would love a max rarity Spellbook engine, and it does, and the Spellbooks do work very nicely with the deck, particularly with the new Crowley that gives you easier access to search them. But yeah, I'm not planning to invest too heavily into that. Okay, so that's pretty much my main tips for looking into building Endymion. Hope you guys liked it. Feel free to always like the video as always if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment down in the description below if there's anything else you guys might want to think about, if you think I've missed in terms of preparing for the deck, or your thought, or maybe I'd also like to hear maybe your guys' thoughts on what you're thinking about playing in the deck. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.